For this wonderful celebration. So if everyone wouldn't mind being on mute, that would be most appreciated so that we can have an enjoyable experience for the rest of the celebration. Everyone can hear me, so hear me well? Very good. So thank you for being here as we gather to honor and remember a remarkable soul, Edouard Joseph Champagne. What better way to start this celebration with the photos we just enjoyed, highlights of Ed's early days growing up in Manitoba before he embarked on a life filled with the friendships, joy, and thrill of adventure, particularly within the skiing and cycling communities. Thanks to Louis Larrivée and Mike Christie for this beautiful montage. My name is Marie-Hélène Thibault, and I'm based in Granby, Quebec. I had the great pleasure to collaborate with Ed on different occasions over the past 20 years through my involvement with the Canadian Alpine Ski Team. Today, it is my honor to serve as Master of Ceremony as we come together to express our deepest sympathy to Ed's family and friends. We also come together to contemplate and celebrate the rich legacy of humanism, generosity, care, community, love, and passion that Ed bestowed upon each of us. It's a great testament to Ed's far-reaching impact to see so many of you here today, covering multiple decades and thousands of kilometers of companionship. Personally, the special bond I shared with Ed reached its pinnacle 6 years ago when I rejoined Alpine Canada to lead the newly created role of Director of Alumni Relations. I say newly created because really the task formalized what Ed had been informally doing his entire life as a member of our ski family. My mandate was clear when I started this job: to humbly try to continue Ed's incredible heritage of keeping our ski community connected. And boy, did he take my job at heart. He regularly sent me vintage photos and always made sure I had the latest alumni updates. So nudging me every once in a while to keep me in the loop on what everyone was up to. Keeping the ski family united was truly one of his greatest passion. How much I enjoyed his insights, his words of encouragement along the way. And even after I left my position, I enjoyed sending him my own family updates, and he always remembered my kids' names and their birthdays, which always impressed me. Over the next hour, you will hear from others who have been touched by Ed. Nancy and Al Rain will kick it off. Brian Stemmel will speak, and Martin Cleary as well will share some of their stories. We'll enjoy another photo montage covering some of Ed's most recent memories, and then we'll have an open mic segment. We have 9 individuals who have expressed interest in sharing stories during that segment, and if we have time, well, we'll gladly keep the open mic going for anyone else who may want to say a few words about Ed and his impact on your lives. We will close with a very special message from none other than Ed himself. So you'll want to stay with us all the way to the end. No, this is not some magic that we pulled off, but it kind of is through Nancy Green and her great generosity back in December. As a humble man who preferred to stay behind the scenes, and as someone who lived to witness almost a full century of progress, I'm sure he'd be the first one in amazement at this virtual ceremony, gathering friends near and far, all in honor of him. Aujourd'hui, mon cher ami, laisse-nous t'honorer et savoure tout cet amour qui te revient. This session is being recorded, so we'll be able to share it with anyone who missed it or wishes to watch it again. So without further ado, I would like to invite Nancy and Al to say a few words. You can unmute yourselves. There we are.
Hello, everyone. And it's so great to have so many people joining us. I've received regrets from quite a few people. Just got one from Brian Williams, who just lost his phone and is kind of panicking, and he was very happy to hear this is being recorded. So, but he did want to say about what a wonderful person Ed was, and what a real professional, and how much he helped him in his career covering the ski team. Al and I met Ed in 1969 and have loved staying in touch with him and seeing him as often as we were in Ottawa. And so, Al?
Yeah, I'm sorry that my voice is acting up. So I'm going to let Nancy read my message.
Yeah. So this is what Al wrote for me to read to you guys. In 1969, when the ski team office moved to Montreal, we were looking for a team manager. Larry Nellis, who was working for the Ski Association, suggested Ed Champagne from Winnipeg. Larry assured us that this guy was organized, keen, and he was bilingual. On a trip out west, actually to our wedding, I stopped in Winnipeg to interview Ed. I quickly realized that he was meticulously organized and would be easy to work with. I gave him a quick job description: organize all ski team travel, communicate with all ski team members, work alongside me to develop an official supplier program, collect the fees, and organize all the equipment and clothing for ski team members, run the Alpine team side of the Ski Association office, carry out media relations, including all press releases, manage public relations and fundraising events, and develop a relationship with team members as a confidant, and finally, to manage the parent-team relationships. It was our lucky day when Ed accepted the job. With the help of some very efficient office staff, Ed became the clearinghouse for the Alpine ski team. He carried out all of these duties, working tirelessly to raise the performance of Canadian World Cup skiing. Merci, Edouard. Nous ne pouvons jamais te remercier pour tout que ce que tu as fait pour l'équipe Alpin et le Canada. Merci, merci. So, as for myself, what I loved with Ed were his stories. When I was in the Senate, we'd get together almost every week. We had a favorite quiet corner in the restaurant in my hotel. And after catching up on whatever else was happening in the ski world, I'd probe a bit, and the stories he told were absolutely amazing. Did you know he was a ski bum out west one year? He went out west and he wound up working in a ski area and running a hotel somewhere near Yellowstone Park. I don't think it exists anymore. It was a bit of a Wild West scene. They were struck by a big earthquake, and the hotel became action central for the rescue operations. And of course, Ed was in the center of it all. But he was always interested to share what news he had from so many team members and other friends who stayed in his life. His memory was amazing. Even at the end, when he was suffering with peripheral neuropathy and was in a lot of pain, he loved having people visit and chat. As Al said, he was organized. He'd planned a funeral right down to the last detail. And then a couple of years ago, he canceled everything. When I asked why, he said he didn't want to bother people with having to travel to Ottawa because everybody was getting older. You know, I'm so pleased that the family's going to have a service for Ed as his interment back home in Winnipeg later this summer. The last time I visited Ed, I explained about Zoom meetings and asked if it was okay if would get together and share our love for him. He understood and he agreed. And I'm sure Ed is looking down from heaven and is with us today. Ken Reed is going to join us on the Zoom call, but he won't be able to speak because he'll be in a public area. Ed loved getting his postcards. And next, I'm really happy that Brian Stemmel is here with us. He also had a very special relationship with Ed. So I'll ask Brian to take over now. And thank you again, everyone, for the joy and love you brought into Ed's amazing life. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Nancy. That's amazing. Yeah, he was just a great guy, and really the lifeline between our parents, really, and what their kids are doing over in Europe. And he was always a big communicator that way. And especially when I had fallen 3 years in a row, he got to know my mom really well. And he knew her before that because my mom worked at the Ontario ski team office. And so she got to know Ed very well, and even more so when my sister and I started racing. But because of those falls and injuries, they, were communicating through phone and even telex back then. But when I fell in Kitzbühel, that's when Ed really became a close part of our family and our lives, and really looked after my parents and let them know exactly what was going on. And he was also a big confidant to my great friend, Kevin Albrecht, who used to work with Ed for so many years at the ski team office in Ottawa. And Kevin was the first guy to fly over after I fell in Kitzbühel. And I reached out to him last night to see what he had to say about Ed and my crash there. And he said, what I remember most, I think Kevin's on the call anyway. I hope he can share some stories, because Kevin's a great storyteller. But what he told this one after my fall in 1989 in Kitzbühel, when I almost died, he said, what I remember most about Ed and your crash was that he constantly was in touch with me throughout, before I flew over and once I was over there. Kevin said, he must have hardly slept for days. I would call the ski team office early each morning on Austrian time, so in the middle of night in Ottawa, to leave a message on his voicemail, and he would pick up the phone. He was sleeping in his office. What I remember most about him is how much he cared about everyone, the skiers, the coaches, the staff, the team doctors, the skiers' families, the media, everyone. He was one of a kind. He is and will be missed. So that's what Kevin Albrecht wrote. And yeah, what I remember, or what I will remember most about Ed, is that great photo. And I hope we have it in the montage of when we were doing a photo shoot in Toronto. Ed came down and was looking after everything, as he always did, and a great connector of people and things. And he put on this beautiful photo shoot for all the ski team members and coaches to be there. And at the end of it, he was gifted a rocking chair, because he was the grandfather who looked after everybody all the time, like he did with my parents and he did with me. Even when I went to visit him in Ottawa, he was always looking after us. Even, when we weren't on the ski team anymore, he's still looking after all of us, connecting all of us. And so that grandfather chair that Ed sat in with his pipe and his debonair look and that classic Comte de Florence hat, sitting in the chair with everybody around him, it was his dream to do that. And he allowed all of us to follow all of our dreams, in each in our own every way. And he really looked after us. So I will remember Ed for a lifetime. So thanks for allowing me to speak, and I hope everyone else can share some stories as well.
Thank you, Brian. Well, I'm happy to say you won't be disappointed with the photo. Stay tuned. I would now like to invite Martin Cleary to say a few words, and you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to speak about a good friend, a great friend. I was introduced to Ed in the mid-1970s during a phone conversation early in my lengthy career as a sports editor or sports writer with the Ottawa Citizen newspaper. My sports editor at the time asked me to write a weekly column about all aspects of skiing. One of my colleagues, Tom Casey, suggested I give Ed a call if I wanted to have any interviews with skiers or coaches of the national team. That was a brilliant suggestion. Not only did Ed set up an interview for me with the national women's ski team coach, Lynn McIntosh at the time, but also Ed's easygoing manner, thoroughness, and professionalism caught my attention right away, and triggered a friendship that lasted almost 50 years. Over the years, whether I was writing about skiing or not, I would call or take a call from Ed to get the latest and greatest news about the Alpine ski team. With every call, I'd learn a little more about Ed, the person who was passionate about alpine skiing, but also had a deep Christian faith. After we talked about skiing business of the day, we often chatted about our own individual lives. We both retired at different times, but the phone calls continued. As we got older, we would check to see how we were doing. Quite often we talk about medical issues, which understandably was a topic of the conversation many days. But one of the things that stood out for me about Ed was how much he cared about all the people in his expansive circle, whether it involved work, friends, or the people living in his apartment. In his retirement, he never really left his job. If he had your email address, he wanted you to know what was happening with the national ski team. At some point, I think his email address list was well into several thousand enthusiasts. Like everyone, he would battle with computer issues, but he eventually won each of those challenges and was able to continue to send out the news of the day. Ed did that because he truly cared. I always was impressed that he took time to document the important non-skiing details of the lives of skiers and friends. As mentioned before, he knew the people's birthdays, anniversaries, the names of husbands, wives, and children. He politely wanted to know what everyone was doing and if they were well. Ed did that because he truly cared. In one of our conversations, Ed spoke about his interest in joining the priesthood. He considered it, but didn't pursue that career choice. But for many years, I'm not sure how many or when it all started for Ed, he would attend his neighborhood church and help the parish priest, whether it was being an altar server, at a daily mass, or at a funeral. Ed did that because he truly cared. If we had conversations around major holidays, Ed would talk about his siblings. He loved his brothers and sisters. He enjoyed getting in his car and driving to visit the ones who lived nearby. The drives were taxing sometimes, but family was so important to Ed. Ed did that because he truly cared. Living in an apartment in downtown Ottawa for many years, he got to know his neighbors. He would help them as best he could, just as they would help him as best they could. Ed did that because he truly cared. During his 75 years devoted to many aspects of skiing, including 21 as a full-service member with the Canadian Ski Association in many roles, he made many friends. Many kept in touch with Ed. Some would pop by for a visit or an outing. Ed's welcoming personality was a magnet that allowed him to develop many lifelong relationships. Ed did that because he truly cared. I've learned a lot from Ed over the years because he truly cared about the people around him. He was an invaluable friend and remains a forever role model. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate the breadth of your experiences and memories with Ed. So we are grateful that you're here and you've shared these with us. And it's
You're
true
welcome.
that Ed cared. Before we shift, as I said earlier, to the open mic segment, Mike Christie created another wonderful video compilation photo montage of special moments that you shared with us by email ahead of this celebration. And so we will now play this 3-minute clip highlighting most recent memories, and hopefully these will bring smiles and happy memories back. What a wonderful reel. So many moments. Nice to make the connections between all of you who are here today. We're 76 on the line right now, and many of you sent photos, so it's most appreciated and just wonderful to see Ed smiling on so many of them. So thanks, Mike, for putting this together. We're now at the open mic segment, and I have a lineup that I will propose to keep everyone organized. So I have Louis Larrivée will speak first. Mike Christie, then Sister Louise Charbonneau, Judy Black, Lucille Wheeler, Diane Culver, Michael Culver, Jeff Hendry, and Ivo Krupka. And if we have some additional time, obviously, we will keep things rolling with the open mic, but let's start it off with Louis. You can unmute. Okay, I've unmuted you, and I'm going to put you in spotlight.
Hi, Louis Larrivée. I'm a very close friend of Edouard. I'm also the executor of his estate right now. And I don't think Marie-Hélène mentioned that that there will be a service for Edouard in Winnipeg at the St. Boniface Cemetery that's scheduled for the 12th of July, the date of his birthday. And most his close family will be there, but I will also be there as well. We're close friends. He was a friend of my dad's back in St. Boniface, and that's how I got to know him here in Ottawa. The anecdote I want to tell you about is when Edouard's brother had a brother, Art, living in Cobourg, Ontario, and he went and visited him a few years ago. And I think it was the last trip he took outside of Ottawa. And he took the train at that time. So he went and visited his brother Art, and then he came back. And I called him up and asked him, well, how was the train trip? And he said he hated it. And I said, you hated it? Well, I take the train to Toronto and Montreal, and I love it. So what was the problem? He said, when I was on the train, everybody there, they were looking at their phone, they had headphones on, they were looking at their laptops. And then it hit me. He comes from a generation when people took public transportation, they actually talked to each other. So that basically underlies a lot of what people have been saying about Ed. Il aime rencontrer des gens, il aime parler à des gens, et c'était toujours comme ça. And that's my anecdote.
Merci, Louis. Fantastique. We'll keep that in mind next time we're on the train to make sure that we connect and care and acknowledge those around us, and as one of Ed's many legacies. I see Guy Thibodeau put his hand up, so I assume that means that you'd like to speak. So I'm going to add you to the lineup. It's well noted, Guy. Merci beaucoup. Let's have now some time for Mike Christie to say a few words. You can unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Marie-Hélène. And just before we switch over, sitting beside Louis is Bernard Chevrier, who has lived in Ed's building, one of the original people, I think, probably over maybe 50 years. So, you know, there was some mention, Martin mentioned about the friends in his apartment building. It was, you know, another amazing family, and several are on this particular call. So Ed's support network, you know, was extensive and very impressive on that. And you know, on that particular note, I first got to meet or know Ed when I was working at the division level, and he was in the national office. And then I came to Ottawa in the I think around 87 or so, and at that time the national office was on 3 River Road, and I lived not that far from Ed, and actually, ironically, across the river. And I felt immediately as a rookie in the Canadian Alpine Ski Team office. He made you feel welcome and very supportive. And I learned earlier on that once you're a friend of Ed, you're a friend for life. And I got to witness that over the many decades of time that we spent together. And there's probably two reflections that are worth noting. And I remember that Ed had left the team, and there's some talk about technology and that kind of stuff. And he got a computer, and I said, Ed, you should maybe think about getting an email account, And so he had there was a techie person in the building who helped him get the computer, get it all set up. And that basically just opened up a whole new life for Ed, and that he was able to connect with everybody and share the news and that kind of stuff. And that was, I remember that time, how transformational it was for him. And I would feed him news every now and then, and he would forward it on. And that really kind of kept him going. And over time, when he wasn't in the office, we had this thing going. I called it the 5x5. And what it meant is Monday to Friday at 5 o'clock, he knew that he'd get a call from me, and we continued that on for decades. And when he was hospitalized, I'd go to visit him about twice a week, and we had to change the time a little bit because it conflicted with mealtime. But Ed would never run out of stories to tell, and he really appreciated the messages that people sent to him, and I know there was, I think Nancy made a call out to everybody to, when Ed was hospitalized at the Briere, to send notes or cards, and many of the people on this call did do that, and it really meant a lot to him. There was some people he hadn't heard of for years, and some very, very special notes that were there. So it was just another reflection of how important everybody was to him and his extended family in his different elements of his life. And I guess that's about it. So the 5x5 and the email and the friends for life are probably the three things that sort of stick with me about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The next person who would like to speak is Sœur Louise Charbonneau. Donc, si vous pouvez vous présenter, puis prendre la parole. Sister Louise Charbonneau.
Merci beaucoup, Marie-Hélène. Je suis sœur Louise Charbonneau, sœur de la Charité d'Ottawa, et je suis accompagnée de sœur André Ménard, sœur de la Charité d'Ottawa. Et je vais placer notre relation avec Edouard en contexte avec ma petite présentation. So thank you for sharing the love and the generosity that you've all experienced with Edouard. He climbed ski hills with you, and he climbed mountains of faith with us. We are deeply honored to help you discover Edouard, the man of faith. Faith was the source of his generosity and his compassion towards mankind. I met Edouard about 35 years ago. We were members of St. Anne's Parish in Ottawa. Edouard was a faithful and reliable right-hand man of the pastor. He was always available to assist members of our faith community, including members of our congregation who were responsible for a house for adolescent girls in crisis. Every Thursday, Edouard would take the sisters grocery shopping, a service that the sisters deeply appreciated. We developed another relationship with Edouard while he was an associate of our congregation. You might wonder, what does being an associate of the Sisters of Charity entail? Well, it entails living your daily life inspired by the charism of compassion and the mission of the Sisters of Charity of Ottawa. We discovered the source of Edouard's generosity and his commitment to service to anyone in need. His profound attachment to Sainte Marguerite Duville and to the Venerable Elizabeth Briere, founders of the Sisters of Charity of Ottawa. Both women dedicated their lives to serving those in need. Edouard was a man of compassion in action. Fast forward to the fall of 2023. Edouard was admitted to St. Vincent Hospital. Informed about this admission, we visited him at least 4 times. We laughed, we cried, we sang, and we prayed together. Edouard shared the prayer that he had composed to both Sainte Marguerite Dieuville and to Mother Bruyere. Unfortunately, we were unable to visit Edouard in his new residence because of health concerns at the facility. We entrusted Edouard to our beloved Sainte Marguerite Dieuville and to the Venerable Elizabeth Bruyere. Both were at the door of heaven, we're sure, when the Eternal Father welcomed Edouard on February 9th, 2024. May his life remain a testimony for us. As he walked in Jesus' footsteps, he was a man of faith and service. We give thanks for his generosity and his compassion. Merci, cher Edouard, pour ce que tu... She's making me cry. Merci, cher Edouard, pour ce que tu as été pour Dieu et pour nous. Repose en paix, cher ami. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Sœur Louise Charbonneau. Merci beaucoup à vous. Quel beau témoignage. For sure, Edouard is in heaven and watching on all of us and just having a big grin right now of this amazing circle of love that we are all together here. The next person who will speak is Judy Black, representing Alpine Canada. And Judy took over my role as, amongst her many duties, alumni relations director and also fundraising director. So Judy, I'm trying to find you. If you maybe say a few words, you might pop up.
I'm here. Hi, well, welcome everyone. And I just obviously want to say from the bottom of my heart, as director, I would have loved to have known him, but I think more as a human being, I would have loved to have spent time with this extraordinary man. I have a few words that was written by Therese, who is our CEO of Alpine Canada, and she unfortunately can't be on this call. She would have loved to have been here, but she's in transit on her way back from FIS meetings in Slovenia. So I'm going to just read something from her. And I also want to thank my good buddy Nancy, who over this last year has filled me in some extraordinary stories about Ed. Coming into the role, I always knew that there have to have been, unbelievably extraordinary, amazing people that helped to build the legacy of this fine organization. So thank you, Nance, for helping me out to get to know him a little bit. So I'll just read this, and this is from Therese. I'm sorry I can't be with you today as I am in transit on our way back from FIS meetings in Slovenia. Alpine Canada is pleased to support this recognition and celebration of the life of Ed Champagne in the ski community. Ed was so special for our ski community. His leadership and contributions had a transformative impact, whether that was supporting our national ski team athletes or the staff as a whole. As they took on the world, he kept the history of the sport top of mind, and most importantly, helping to unite the ski community and alumni for so many years. He had an unmatched passion for the sport and the people. We truly share in the many fond memories shared on the call today and strive to keep his spirit alive in the many years to come. So thank you from Alpine Canada and all of you for attending. I am sure that this unbelievable man would have been thrilled in his own way to be accepted by all of you as true friends and true supporters of his mission in life. So thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Appreciate you becoming such an instrumental member of the family, you as well, over the last months, and keeping
for sure.
the alumni connection alive. It's such a special community that we have.
It is.
Speaking of amazing alumna, the next person who would like to say a few words is Lucille Wheeler. Lucille, if you'll say a few words. Oh, you're on mute, so you'll have to unmute yourself first.
No problem. I can fuck him up.
Oh, hold on. Lucille, are you with us? I saw you log on earlier.
Here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, this is kind of new to me, Zoom. So it's kind of lucky I'm here. It's an honor to be part of Ed's celebration of life service. Ed and I became great friends later in life, probably was good timing. I knew Ed from receiving updates regarding the alumni. He kept us all well informed and together. One evening when I was spending some time in Florida, the phone rang and it was Ed, and he wanted some information. So he asked me if I was busy. And I said, no, I wasn't. I was watching the Australian Open tennis. So he said, oh, do you watch tennis regularly? Oh, I said, I've been watching it for several years. So it turned out he was a fan. So from then on, every time there was a big tennis match on, the emails would go back and forth and the telephone calls. And so then when tennis wasn't on, we would be in contact at Christmas and birthdays and other times. So it developed into a really kind of special friendship. And then I don't know, we've been doing this for a couple of years. Probably it's been at least almost 20 years. But we've been doing it for a few years. And I guess Nancy, who's a great friend of Ed's, was also, I guess Al too, following the tennis. So she decided to join us. So we really had a great communication doing this. And I came to know Nancy much better. So Nancy and I have decided to continue this tradition. And every time I'll be watching tennis, Ed will be in my thoughts. So I'm happy to have been able to say a few words to Ed, because he became to mean a great deal to me. He'd keep in touch with me when my husband wasn't well. And I tried to keep in touch with him when he wasn't well. So this has been a great get together, and thank you for organizing it all.
Thank you very much, Lucille. The next individuals would like to speak are Diane and Michael Culver. So I'm tempted to put you side by side on screen, given the sister-brother link here. So if you want to say a few words, I'll spotlight you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Michael, I hope you're there. That's great. Actually, I was
am.
kind
Thank
of
you.
hoping. Well, Michael, I think you should go first, because he shared with me something about what he's going to say, and it's short, but really, I think you'll appreciate it. So why don't you go first, Michael?
Okay, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me. It's great to see everybody. Thank you, Mary-Hélène, for putting this together. Thank you for Alpine Canada. I first met Ed in 1969 as well, and I think Al and Nancy made a fantastic hire. Ed couldn't have been more different than the general manager of Alpine Canada prior to Ed. They're both effective, but Ed brought a warmth to the office that was phenomenal. A couple of things I want to talk about. Politics, calm in the storm, and the alumni. I always admired Ed for being apolitical. At least he was with me. It was easy to underestimate Ed actually at first, but as you get older and maturity sets in, the onion gets peeled and you discover just an amazing person. In terms of politics, he was Switzerland, neutral as could be. And as a result of that, he was very trustworthy, at least from my perspective. You could talk to him and you knew it would go nowhere. And it would be not a, whatever you said he would listen, but you knew nothing was going to change, because he was apolitical. And that apolitical stance built a sense of trust in a lot of us, I think. The second thing is super calm in a storm. In the montage, there was a picture of one night at the airport with Al and Ed Champagne in front of an Alitalia poster board. I remember that night like it was yesterday. Ed always had a technique for getting to the airport, making sure that we got to the airport as late as possible. This was all before, security and so on. And his reasoning was we had these big heavy ski bags, as we're all familiar with, and he was able to always get them on board these flights without paying extra baggage. But that night, we had so much luggage on the airplane, I thought we were never going to take off from Doorbell. We went down the runway forever and forever. And finally, we took off and we made it to Europe. So he was calm in the storm. He was a jack of all trades. He was the nuts and bolts of Alpine Canada. And the third thing I want to talk about is the alumni. He was the glue that kept us all together. He was someone referred to him as the grandfather. He was the grandfather of our families. He took great pride in the alumni, and I'm a big believer that alumni groups are important. Every great sports dynasty has had a strong alumni. It's really important to rejoice the history of skiing in Canada. In fact, I just finished writing a letter of recommendation for Joanne Hewson-Rees, Lucille, you'll be happy to know. And in preparing that letter, I read about her history. Back in the 50s, she was a real pioneer of the sport. And after retiring, she created the ski Jays, which made skiing reachable or obtainable for many people who otherwise couldn't afford it or whose parents were not interested in skiing. At one time, the ski Jays had 1,000 members. Many ski Jays skied very well, and several made it onto Alpine Canada, the national team. So people have talked about caring. Caring is so important, as we all know. And I've been coaching down at Stratton Mountain School, and I spent a lot of time with Mike Morin, who's the Alpine director. And he spends a huge amount of time making sure there's coaches care. And the athletes feel that. And as a result, we've had some success with some great athletes. But thank you, Alpine Canada, for understanding the value of the alumni. Thank you, Ed. That's all I have to say, Diane. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Well, Michael thought deeply and had 3 or 4 very organized points. Mine is a lot more casual than that. First of all, I'd like to say that this is an amazing get together. And of course, what does it signify? It signifies how important Ed was to all of us here and all those people who couldn't make it. And really, that's what a celebration like this is about. It shows the impact that one person can make. So, and for those of you who, weren't in Ottawa or weren't able to see Ed, you might have noticed at the end, there was a bunch of pictures of people visiting him in the hospital. I was lucky with my great friend, best buddy from the ski team, Laurie Kreiner, and we went to visit him. And I just want to tell you that was on December 8th, and he was still 100% Ed, just incredible. Like someone else mentioned, his memory right to the end was phenomenal, and sense of humor and everything. So you can rest assured that he had a long life, and I didn't see him in the last month, but I know Ricky Hunter saw him just a week or 2 before he passed away, and he said the same thing to me. And so with that, I would just like to again thank everybody for being here, and thank you for organizing it.
Thank you very much, Team Culver. Great to hear the sibling perspective, and most appreciative of your presence. And you're right, it's such a special community that we have. Time is flying by. It's already 3:54. I have 4 more individuals who'd like to speak, and then we do have this very special clip at the end with an audio from Ed himself. So Jeff Hendry, you're next up. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Jeff Hendry here, calling in from the foot of Georgian Peaks, which is now home, but it's the hill that I've been blessed to ski for all my life. And my introduction and my story about Ed is an intergenerational story. Our family with the Crawfords and the Kirbys. You know, I think there was early on the first time a connection to Ed was through probably Don Crawford Sr. and supporting Judy's ascent to the team. And then Bob and my dad were the kind of dads that were the coaches of the junior football teams, you know, with Jim and myself. And they also were huge players in race organizing. And so the story I'm going to tell dates, the start point is the winter of 1974. The Peaks were awarded a Continental Cup race, which was branded as the Bank of Montreal International. We kids thought it was World Cup, but we now know what it was. And it was one of those winters where there was zero-ish snow and we had no snowmaking infrastructure. So I think 2 weeks out, the FIS TD and the ROC, my father was race chair and Bob Kirby was chief of race. They had to make a call, and the call was made first to Ed Champagne. And Ed worked the magic, as you know, I've heard from the background. And Ed managed what Bob Kirby told me later in life after my father had died, that the transition and the handoff was incredible. Mont Saint Anne stepped up and they hosted an incredible race. My father and Bob were treated like royalty by the team of volunteers that were put together in 2 weeks. And interestingly, so 50 years later, this season, you know, the children of Bob and George, we had this in mind that we were running a race 50 years, the NORAM this past winter, that John Mealy and Sue Kirby Mealy were the event chairs. I've earned my stripes now outside the fences, but I had been involved as a race chair for a number of years. So, you know, we, the organizers, had this in the back of our mind. And guess what? It was one of those 50 years later, we had weather in play. And, you know, we got a day and a half of the races done. And sadly, you know, the WhatsApp that was in play down here wasn't quite coordinated with Ed and George and Bob up there, because we had rain that came sort of an hour and a half ahead of schedule, and we weren't able to complete the race. But here's the next 50-year connection. So I believe there was an age group nationals that was to have happened here in Ontario this season. And once again, the weather, and who came to Ontario and the host venues rescue? It was Mont Saint Anne. And I don't think it was as seamless as it happened when Ed was working his magic in behind the scenes. So, and Marie-Hélène, I sent you a photo, and I don't know if you can throw it up there, but one of the things that happened, we had huge electricity and lightning on the last day of the races. And the word, you know, so the races, obviously, we all know now. And for those of us, the WhatsApp drives races. And now, so the message didn't get up to them up top. So the long and short, we had lightning, everything happened. Then, of course, after the race was called, the sun came out about an hour later. And then later that evening, I took a photo of this Inukshuk, and there's the presence of Ed Champagne. And that is free to be shared with. But what struck me is faith and the spiritual life and calm in the storm. And boy, oh boy, you know, that's something that I emulate in my volunteer craft. So again, thank you for allowing me to participate, and what a life and an example. Thank you.
Amazing, Jeff. Thank you so much. I know some of you have pointed out that the time is clocking. I've just texted Alpine Canada. They had assured me that the Zoom was not going to be ending, but fingers crossed if they need to make a little bit of an adjustment to extend the time in the background just to make sure, fingers crossed that's going, but we'll keep going. I think there's so much love in the air that, and there's only a few to go here who want to take speak up. So let's go through, and we may end up probably around 4:20-ish, given that we have the 3-minute clip at the end. So thank you for being patient. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being so generous towards Ed. Ivo Krupka, if you are here still with us and would like to share your story.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marie-Hélène. It really is a very great honor for me to participate in this event, particularly because I'm not really an alumnus, but I am part of that family on the thousands of emails that Ed put together. It really was in the last weeks of his life that I came to appreciate more than ever just what a remarkably fine human being, inspiring human being Ed was. Thanks to a nudge from Nancy, I visited Ed at his retirement home in Ottawa on several occasions. The last time, just a couple of days before he died. He had been through the wars, as people have said, in various hospitals. And as one might have seen from one of the photos, I mean, his hearing was almost completely gone and his eyesight was terrible. So you had to print in large letters on a small whiteboard to communicate, but Ed could talk. And as Sœur Louise mentioned, we talked about everything. We did laugh and we cried a little and hugged each time I left. Ed really believed very strongly that hard work conquers all. And I think that's evident from what people have been saying this afternoon. And much of that work was focused on supporting us and bringing us together. Que le Seigneur te donne, notre cher Edouard, un bon repos éternel.
Merci beaucoup, Ivo. And for perspective, also, you are the former president of the Canadian Ski Hall of Fame and Museum. And I believe that was one of Ed's big passions, and also invitations to all of us to support the museum through membership. And so we invite everyone to go have a look at your website and see how we can get involved and make sure that the legacy of our sport is preserved for generations and generations ahead. Is there anything else you wanted to add on that note?
No, you've said it perfectly, and I really greatly appreciate that. Merci beaucoup.
Bienvenue, ça fait plaisir. We have two extra individuals who would like to speak up, and then we will shift to our closing gift to you. So Guy Thibodeau.
Hello.
Bonjour Guy. Oh, un instant. You got muted.
Now.
C'est bon.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
OK, bonjour tout le monde. Je suis à Mont-Tremblant, au lieu du ski alpin au Canada. Hi to everyone. I'll try to be very brief. A lot has been said about Ed, and great man as he is. I first met him in the late 60s when he moved to Montreal to run the alpine ski team from old Montreal. In those days, I was just beginning my career as a ski journalist, and eventually had a ski show on CJD in Montreal, an hour ski show which ran every Friday night. And in that segment, that show, we had a segment devoted to the ski racing and the national ski team. And you can imagine in the 70s, getting hold of people to do live interviews on radio was a bit complicated. There were no cell phones, but thanks to Ed and his direct contact with the ski team and with me, he made it a lot easy for us to talk to the Crazy Canucks. In those days. It was a very hot period for alpine skiing, and I'm forever grateful for the help that he provided in those days. And finally, one thing I would like to say as we close this fabulous event is the one main lesson that I take from Ed's life is to keep in touch with your friends. You know, as we all grow older, we have fewer years ahead of us, and all our friends are growing older as well. So please try to keep in touch with them. Ed did that, helped us stay in contact with one another. I'm not a member of the alumni, but as a journalist and one that's been involved in skiing, he kept me in the loop. So I hope that from now on, if he's not around, I'm sure that Marie-Hélène will take over and make sure that his legacy is carried on beautifully. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the time, and have a good summer, everyone.
Merci beaucoup, Guy. And it was nice to see you as well. It's been a while. Okay, so I had a special request from Caroline Midgley, who will say a few words and close the open mic segment. Caroline, are you still with us? Just unmute.
Thank you very much, Marie-Hélène. I wasn't realizing I was going to be closing off, but I just want to bring a perspective from my father, who was head of ski jumping in Canada and in Ottawa. And that's how I first learned about and met Ed. He and my dad worked together often at the ski office. And I'm now living in an apartment building where I'm looking at that building where the ski office was. So I think of Ed and my dad almost every day. He had such an amazing way of, as people have said, of connecting. And my dad was involved with the ski jumping, as I mentioned, and my brother Patrick, and he's always kept in touch with us through the years. And an interesting thing I will share is, on a personal note, Ed and Nancy used to always kept us in touch with Ed too. And whenever she came to visit Ed, we would always kind of connect. And Arnold was not well, my husband, and we weren't able to go very much to see him. We went a couple of times to his apartment in the early days when we moved here. But in the latter years, I was really not able to go. But we did talk to him on the telephone. And to our wonderful surprise, one evening he called, and he was so excited that he and Arnold shared the same caregiver, who was both his and our favorite. And you weren't supposed to know anything about any other patient or any other person that was being cared for. But he was so happy he got through that whole area and called us with great excitement. So he was just such a vivid, wonderful person. I loved his smile and his joy of life and of skiing, and that he embraced so many areas, and also was really kept in touch with the ski museum, as Ivo had said, and through Arnold as well. So it's a beautiful tribute, and I'm so grateful to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Caroline. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for your amazing stories about Ed. And I'm sure that these have provided a lot of peace and joy to the family members, and also to all of you who cared so much about him. So before we bid farewell, we have a final parting gift for you. As I said a little briefly earlier, this past December, after the Tremblant World Cup, which was really a tremendous and memorable event, and for which Ed would have just been so delighted to attend, but I know he was there in thought and in spirit. Nancy visited Ed at the hospital, and she recorded a message from Ed to everyone, and you will see it's extremely touching, and Mike did an amazing job again adding some visual elements to it. So enjoy this. And we'll come back after. It's about a 3-minute-ish clip. We'll come back and I'll just wish farewell to everyone afterwards. So stand by and I will share this with you.
And here I am here with Nancy Rain, who's visiting me, and how I wish I would have been to share these wonderful time with everybody at Mont Tremblant. It brings back memories from those many years ago, and how I wish I could have been there, and to enjoy every one of you and meet every one of you and hug every one of you. All of you people that I've known over the years, how I miss you. Tears come to my eyes thinking about you often. And today, especially when Nancy here with me, who's explaining to me that all of you people, all the crowd that was at Tremblant, it just really makes me feel well that all these years my involvement with the Alpine team is really something that I'm thankful for. And I'm very thankful for so many people that I've met over the years, that the names of people that were on the ski team. You know, when I think, I want to mention one name that often sends me, I want to thank Ken Reed, who, him and Linda, I've kept a little promise. Ken has been sending me postcards every time he goes to some different thing, because he says it brings back memories from years ago that the team was sending postcards to the office. And this is really brings me wonderful memories. I also want to say hello and warm wishes to all of you who over the years I've shared happy and memories, and also some more sad memories. I've been to a lot of, as they say, lately I've been to in memories. I have had the chance to meet a lot of the people who have passed away, so many of them that but this is what aging brings you on. Who thought that I would still be here, at this time of year. Anyway, thank you very much to everybody. I wish you all warm wishes, a big hug to each one of you, and keep well. God bless you all. Thank you.
So I told you that was a special way to wrap up this ceremony. Even myself, I feel a little bit of a choke right now just thinking about Ed and how special he was. But I hope this celebration was tremendous for you as much as it was for me. Again, deepest sympathies to the family, the friends. I want to say a special thanks to Nancy Green, Mike Christie, Louis Larrivée, Alpine Canada, who provided the Zoom link, CBC for the clip, everyone who spoke, the Canadian Ski Museum for some of the archival material that we had access to, and to all of you who attended, made time out of your busy days. We covered all of Canada today, and we covered very different generations as well of love and of impact that Ed had on us. So let us continue to cherish these memories and honor his legacy. And let's find solace in the knowledge that Ed's spirit continues to inspire us all. Merci Ed pour tous ces bons souvenirs. Continue de veiller sur nous. Stay well, everyone. Keep in touch. And as Ed said, God bless. Bon été tout le monde. Have a great summer. Au revoir.
Merci. Thank you
so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, M&H.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Merci beaucoup.
Have a good summer, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Peter.